Thunder cracked across Manhattan's skyline, while rain hammered the emergency bay doors of Metropolitan Crown Hospital. Inside Trauma 3, Dr. Scarlett Vale, cardiac surgeon, single mother, survivor, stood over a dying man whose face she thought she would never see again. 7 years ago, Luca Moretti proposed to her in a penthouse overlooking Central Park. Then he vanished without a word, leaving her pregnant and alone. Now the infamous mafia boss lay bleeding out on her operating table, bullets lodged near his heart, while their daughter, the child he never knew existed, slept peacefully 20 blocks away. Scarlett had two choices: let the past die with him, or save the man who destroyed her life. Her hands were already moving. Some scars run too deep to ever stop bleeding. The storm hit Manhattan like a fist. Rain slammed against the windows of Metropolitan Crown Hospital's trauma wing, while lightning turned the East River silver for half-seconds at a time. Inside the staff lounge on the 4th floor, Dr. Scarlett Vale stood motionless in front of the coffee machine, staring at the cup in her hand like she had forgotten what it was for. Her surgical scrubs were clean. Her dark hair was tied back tight. Her hands were steady. Everything about her screamed control. Everything except the exhaustion carved into the shadows beneath her eyes. Scarlett, she turned. Dr. Angela Chen stood in the doorway, tablet pressed against her chest, expression unreadable. Angela had been Scarlett's attending physician during her residency 6 years ago. Now they worked side by side in the cardiothoracic unit, and Angela knew better than anyone when Scarlett was running on fumes. "You have been on for 16 hours, Angela said quietly. "Go home. I am fine. You are not fine. You have got a 7-year-old daughter who probably has not seen you awake in 3 days. Scarlett's jaw tightened. Elena is with my neighbor. She is fine. That is not the point. Then what is the point, Angela exhaled slowly. The point is you are burning yourself out, and one of these days you are going to collapse in the middle of surgery and kill someone. She paused. Or yourself. Scarlett did not answer. She just turned back toward the coffee machine and pressed the button again. The cup filled with something dark and bitter that barely resembled coffee, but it was hot and it would keep her awake for another few hours. That was all that mattered. Angela stepped closer. Scarlett, listen to me. You do not have to prove anything to anyone anymore. You made it. You are one of the best cardiac surgeons on the East Coast. You have got a beautiful daughter. You have survived everything life threw at you. So why do you keep acting like you are still running from something? Scarlett's fingers tightened around the coffee cup. Because she was. She had been running for 7 years. Ever since the night Luca Moretti walked out of her life without a word and left her alone with a pregnancy test in a Brooklyn apartment that smelled like mold and broken dreams. But Angela did not need to know that. Nobody did. I am fine, Scarlett said again. I just need to finish my shift. Angela opened her mouth to argue. Then her pager went off. She glanced down at the screen and her expression changed instantly. Trauma alert. Gunshot wound to the chest. Multiple victims. Estimated time of arrival, 3 minutes. Scarlett was already moving. She shoved the coffee cup onto the counter and pushed past Angela into the hallway. Her exhaustion evaporated the moment adrenaline hit her bloodstream. This was what she was good at. This was what made sense. Inside an operating room, everything had rules, protocols, outcomes you could control if you were fast enough and precise enough and did not let your hands shake. Out in the real world, nothing made sense. But in here, she was God. She sprinted down the hallway toward the trauma bay, her sneakers squeaking against the linoleum floor. Around her, the hospital erupted into controlled chaos. Nurses rushed past with crash carts. Residents shouted orders into their radios. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed as ambulances screamed toward the emergency entrance. Scarlett pushed through the double doors into Trauma Bay 3 and immediately started scrubbing in at the sink. Her mind shifted into autopilot. Hands under scalding water, soap up to the elbows, 30 seconds of mechanical precision while her brain prepared for whatever was coming through those doors. Gunshot wound to the chest. Multiple victims. That meant gang violence, drug deals gone wrong, maybe a robbery, maybe a turf war between crews fighting over Brooklyn or Queens or the Bronx. It did not matter. All that mattered was keeping whoever came through those doors alive long enough to wheel them into surgery. Behind her, the trauma team assembled like soldiers preparing for battle. Angela moved into position at the head of the table. Two surgical residents flanked the sides. A trauma nurse prepped the defibrillator. Another nurse laid out rows of surgical instruments with the kind of speed that only came from years of practice. Scarlett pulled on her gloves and turned toward the bay doors just as they exploded open. Paramedics stormed inside, pushing a gurney at full speed. Blood soaked through the white sheets covering the patient's chest. One paramedic pressed both hands against a compress trying to slow the bleeding, while another squeezed a breathing bag to force air into the patient's collapsing lungs. Male, mid-30s, multiple gunshot wounds to the torso, the lead paramedic shouted. Blood pressure 70/40 and dropping, pulse thready, lost consciousness en route. They slammed the gurney against the operating table, and the trauma team moved as one unit. Angela grabbed the patient's head to stabilize the airway. The residents cut away the blood-soaked clothing. Nurses started IV lines in both arms. Scarlett stepped forward to assess the damage, and then she saw his face. The air vanished from her lungs. Time fractured into broken glass. Everything around her, the shouting voices, the screaming alarms, the chaos, all of it collapsed into silence. Because the man dying on her operating table was Luca Moretti. The man who proposed to her 7 years ago beneath the stars on a private rooftop in Manhattan. The man who promised her forever and then disappeared like smoke. The man who never knew he had a daughter. For 3 seconds, Scarlett could not move, could not breathe, could not think. Her brain screamed at her to run, to let someone else take over, to get as far away from this man as possible before the past ripped her apart all over again. But her hands were already reaching for the scalpel. "Scarlett?" Angela's voice cut through the fog. "You good?" Scarlett forced herself to nod. "I am good, liar." She was not good. She was drowning. But she had spent 7 years learning how to drown without letting anyone see it. So she shoved the emotions down into the same dark hole where she had buried everything else and focused on the only thing that mattered right now. Keeping Luca Moretti alive. Even if she hated him. Even if seeing his face made her want to scream. Even if every instinct in her body told her to walk away and let him bleed out on this table. The same way he had let her bleed out emotionally 7 years ago, she could not. Because despite everything, despite the abandonment, despite the lies, despite the years of silence, she still was not the kind of person who let people die, even the ones who deserved it. "Talk to me," Scarlett said, her voice cold and steady. "What are we looking at?" One of the residents pressed a stethoscope against Luca's chest. Breath sounds absent on the left side. Possible hemothorax. "Get me a chest tube. Now." The nurse slapped the instrument into her hand. Scarlett did not hesitate. She made a precise incision between Luca's ribs and inserted the tube in one smooth motion. Dark blood gushed out immediately, filling the collection chamber. "Hemothorax confirmed," Scarlett said. "He is bleeding into his chest cavity. We need to get him into surgery before he bleeds out." Angela nodded. "Operating room 2 is prepped and ready. Then let us move." They transferred Luca onto a clean gurney and sprinted toward the operating theater. Scarlett ran beside him, one hand pressed against his chest to monitor his breathing, her mind racing through 1,000 calculations at once. Bullet trajectory, organ damage, blood loss, survival probability. She could not afford to think about anything else. Could not afford to remember the way Luca used to smile at her, like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. Could not afford to remember the way his hands felt when he held her face and whispered promises about the life they were going to build together. Could not afford to remember the morning she woke up alone in their apartment with nothing but a note that said, "I am sorry," and an engagement ring that she eventually sold to pay for medical school. None of that mattered anymore. All that mattered was the surgery. They burst through the doors into operating room 2. The surgical team was already waiting. Scrub nurses, anesthesiologists, perfusionists standing by in case they needed to put Luca on bypass. Scarlett moved into position at the head of the table while Angela intubated him and the anesthesiologist pushed drugs to keep him under. "Scalpel," Scarlett said. The nurse placed the blade in her hand. Scarlett took one breath, then she cut. The next 3 hours passed in a blur of blood and precision. Luca's chest cavity was a disaster. 2 bullets had penetrated his left lung, causing it to collapse. Another had shattered 2 ribs and lodged dangerously close to his heart. The 4th bullet had nicked his descending aorta, causing a slow leak that would have killed him in minutes if they had not gotten him into surgery when they did. Scarlett worked with the kind of cold focus that made her one of the best cardiac surgeons on the East Coast. Her hands moved like machines, cutting, clamping, suturing, cauterizing. She did not think, did not feel, just operated. But every time she looked down at Luca's face, something cracked inside her chest. He looked older, harder. There were scars on his body that had not been there 7 years ago. Burn marks on his shoulder, a jagged knife wound across his ribs. Evidence of a life spent in violence and darkness. What the hell happened to you, Luca? She did not say it out loud, did not let herself wonder, just kept working. Bleeding is under control, Angela said from across the table. Lungs reinflated, vitals stabilizing. Good, let us close him up. They stitched Luca back together layer by layer, muscle, fascia, skin. By the time Scarlett tied off the final suture, her hands were trembling from exhaustion, but her face remained perfectly calm. She stepped back from the table and stripped off her gloves. He is stable, she said quietly. Move him to the ICU. I want round-the-clock monitoring. If anything changes, page me immediately. Angela nodded. You did good, Scarlett. Scarlett did not answer. She just turned and walked out of the operating room before anyone could see the cracks forming in her armor. The ICU waiting room was empty. Scarlett collapsed into one of the plastic chairs and pressed her hands against her face. Her scrubs were soaked with blood, Luca's blood, and the smell of it made her stomach turn. She had saved him. She had actually saved him. The man who destroyed her life was alive because of her, and she did not know whether to laugh or scream. Her pager buzzed. She glanced down at the screen. ICU, patient awake. Scarlett's heart stopped. No, it was too soon. Luca should not be awake yet. The anesthesia alone should have kept him under for at least another few hours. But apparently the mafia boss was just as stubborn unconscious as he had been when they were together. She stood slowly and walked toward the ICU like she was walking toward her own execution. The hallway felt longer than it should have been. Each step echoed too loud. By the time she reached Luca's room, her pulse was hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. She stopped outside the door, took one breath, then pushed it open. Luca was awake. He lay in the hospital bed surrounded by machines and IV lines. His chest wrapped in bandages, his face pale but alert. The moment Scarlett stepped into the room, his eyes locked onto hers, and for 3 seconds neither of them moved. Scarlett. Her name sounded different in his voice, rougher, broken, like he had spent 7 years screaming it into the void and finally found her again. Scarlett's hands curled into fists at her sides. You should not be awake yet. Yeah, well, Luca's voice was hoarse from the breathing tube. Dying is easier than facing you. Do not what? Do not try to be charming. Do not try to make jokes. Do not act like we are old friends catching up. Scarlett's voice was ice. You do not get to do that. Luca exhaled slowly. I know, do you? Scarlett, you left. The words ripped out of her before she could stop them. You proposed to me. You told me you loved me. You told me we were going to build a life together. And then you vanished. No explanation. No goodbye. Nothing. Her voice cracked. Do you have any idea what that did to me? Luca's jaw tightened. You had to? Scarlett laughed bitterly. You had to break my heart and disappear? You had to leave me alone and pregnant and terrified? The word pregnant hit Luca like a bullet. His entire body went rigid. His face drained of color. What? Scarlett froze. Shit. She had not meant to say it. Had not meant to tell him like this. But the damage was done. Luca stared at her with an expression she had never seen before. Shock. Disbelief. Horror. All of it crashing together at once. You were pregnant, he whispered. Scarlett did not answer. Scarlett, answer me. Were you pregnant? Yes. The word hung in the air like a grenade. Luca closed his eyes. Where's the baby? She is not a baby anymore. She is 7. Luca's eyes snapped open. 7. The same amount of time he had been gone. I have a daughter, he said slowly, like he was testing the words to see if they were real. I have a daughter, Scarlett corrected. You have nothing. Scarlett, do not say my name like that. Like what? Like you still have the right to care. Luca flinched, but he did not look away. What is her name? Scarlett hesitated. She should not tell him. She should walk out of this room right now and never look back. But something in Luca's expression stopped her. Something raw and desperate and utterly destroyed. "Elena," she said quietly. "Her name is Elena." Luca's breath hitched. "She looks like you," Scarlett continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "Same eyes, same stubborn chin, same way of tilting her head when she is thinking too hard about something." A single tear slid down Luca's face. Scarlett had never seen him cry before. Not once. Not even when his father died. But now the infamous mafia boss, the man who had built an empire on fear and violence, was falling apart in a hospital bed because he had just learned he had a daughter he never met. "I am sorry," Luca whispered. "Sorry does not fix this. I know. Sorry does not give her back the father she never had. I know. Sorry does not, I know." Luca's voice cracked. "I know, Scarlett. I know I destroyed everything. I know I do not deserve forgiveness. I know I do not deserve to even be in the same room as you. But I need you to understand something. I do not want to understand. I left to protect you." Scarlett laughed bitterly. "That is the oldest lie in the book. It is not a lie." "Then prove it." Luca exhaled slowly. There was a war inside the family. "I tried to shut down the trafficking operations, the weapons deals, the drugs, the things my father built that I wanted to destroy. But my underboss found out. He threatened you, sent me photos of you walking to work, sleeping in your apartment. Evidence that he could reach you whenever he wanted." Luca's voice turned ragged. "He told me if I did not disappear, he would kill you. So I left. I staged my own death, went underground, and spent the last 7 years hunting every single person who threatened you." Scarlett stared at him. She wanted to call him a liar, wanted to scream at him for thinking she was stupid enough to believe this story. But the look in his eyes told her it was true. Every word. "You should have told me," she whispered. "I could not risk it. You should have trusted me. I did trust you. That is why I left. Because I knew if you were in danger, I would not be able to think straight. I would make mistakes. And those mistakes would have gotten you killed." Luca's voice broke. "So I chose to lose you instead. I thought it was the only way to keep you alive." Scarlett's hands trembled. 7 years. 7 years of hating him. 7 years of believing he had abandoned her because she was not good enough. 7 years of raising their daughter alone while he was out there fighting a war she did not even know existed. And now he was lying in a hospital bed telling her he had done it all to protect her. "I do not know what to do with this," Scarlett said quietly. "You do not have to do anything." "Yes, I do, because you just dropped a bomb in the middle of my life. And now I have to figure out how to explain to our daughter that the father she never met is alive and bleeding out in a hospital bed 20 floors above her bedroom." Luca's expression shattered. "She does not know about me. What was I supposed to tell her? That her father was a mafia boss who disappeared before she was born? That he chose his empire over us? I did not. I know that now, but I did not know it then. All I knew was that you were gone, and I was alone, and I had to survive." Luca closed his eyes. "I am sorry. Stop saying that. What else am I supposed to say?" "Nothing." Scarlett turned toward the door. "There is nothing you can say that will fix this." "Scarlett, wait." She stopped, but did not turn around. "Can I meet her?" Luca's voice was barely a whisper. "Please. Just once. I do not care if she hates me. I do not care if she never wants to see me again. I just need to see her. Just once." Scarlett's throat tightened. She should say no. Should protect Elena from this man and his world and everything that came with it. But when she turned around and saw the desperation in Luca's eyes, the same desperation she had felt every time Elena asked why she did not have a father like the other kids, she could not. "I will think about it," Scarlett said quietly. Then she walked out before she could change her mind. Scarlett did not go home. She could not yet. Instead, she walked to the hospital chapel on the 2nd floor and sat in the back row, staring at the empty space where an altar should have been. The room was quiet, peaceful. The kind of place people came when they needed to think, or when they needed to fall apart without anyone watching. Scarlett pressed her hands against her face and let the tears come. 7 years. 7 years of building walls around her heart to protect herself from the pain of losing Luca. And now those walls were crumbling, and she did not know how to stop it. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out and saw a text from her neighbor, Mrs. Chen. "Elena is asking when you are coming home. Should I tell her you are working late again?" Scarlett stared at the message. Elena, her daughter. The only good thing that had come out of the wreckage of her relationship with Luca. And now Luca wanted to meet her. Scarlett closed her eyes. What the hell was she supposed to do? Before she could answer, her pager went off again. ICU code blue. Scarlett's heart stopped. She sprinted out of the chapel and down the hallway toward the ICU, her mind racing through 1,000 worst-case scenarios. Luca. Something had gone wrong. She burst through the doors into his room and found the trauma team already surrounding his bed. Alarms screamed, monitors flatlined. Angela was performing chest compressions while a nurse prepared the defibrillator. What happened? Scarlett shouted. He crashed. Angela said between compressions. V-fib. We are trying to shock him back. Scarlett shoved her way to the table. How many rounds? This is the third. Charged to 200. The nurse hit the button. Charged. Clear. Luca's body jerked as electricity slammed through his chest. Nothing. The monitor stayed flat. Again, 250. Charged. Clear. Another shock. Still nothing. Scarlett's hands started to shake. No, not like this. She had not saved him just to lose him an hour later. Again, she said. 300. Scarlett, Angela started. Do it. The nurse charged the paddles to maximum. Charged. Scarlett pressed her hand against Luca's chest one last time. Do not you dare die on me, she whispered. Then she stepped back. Clear. The shock hit. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then, beep, beep, beep. The monitor came back to life. Luca's heart was beating again. Scarlett exhaled and stumbled backward, her legs almost giving out beneath her. Angela caught her. You okay? Scarlett nodded, but she was not okay. She was not even close, because she had just realized something terrifying, despite everything Luca had done. Despite the lies and the pain and the years of abandonment, she still was not ready to let him go, and that scared her more than anything. Scarlett did not leave the hospital that night. She told herself it was because she needed to monitor Luca's condition, that any responsible surgeon would stay close after a patient coded and nearly died on the table, that it had nothing to do with the way her hands had shaken when his heart stopped, or the crushing weight that had slammed into her chest when she thought she might lose him all over again. But she was lying to herself, and she knew it. By 3 a.m, she was sitting in the ICU break room with cold coffee and a half-eaten sandwich she could not remember buying. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow that made her skin look gray. She had not slept in 24 hours, had not changed out of her blood-stained scrubs, had not called Mrs. Chen to check on Elena. She was falling apart, and the worst part was that nobody could see it. Her phone rang. She glanced at the screen. Mrs. Chen. Scarlett answered. Hey, do not hate me. Mrs. Chen's voice was sharp despite the late hour. Elena woke up crying an hour ago, asking where you were. I told her you were saving lives, but that excuse is getting old, Scarlett. Guilt twisted in Scarlett's stomach. I know. I am sorry. I will be home soon. That is what you said yesterday. And the day before that. I know. She needs her mother. I know. The words came out harsher than Scarlett intended. She pressed her hand against her forehead and exhaled slowly. I am sorry. I just. There is a complicated case and I cannot leave yet. Mrs. Chen was quiet for a moment. Is this about that man they brought in last night? Scarlett's blood went cold. What? The gunshot victim. I heard some nurses talking about it in the cafeteria. Said he was someone important. Someone dangerous. Mrs. Chen paused. Is he the reason you are not coming home? Scarlett's throat tightened. It is not like that. Then what is it like? It is complicated. Everything is complicated with you, Scarlett. But your daughter is not. She is 7 years old and she misses her mother. The words hit like a slap. Because Mrs. Chen was right. Elena deserved better than this. Deserved better than a mother who was too broken to come home. I will be there in an hour, Scarlett said quietly. Good. Because if you are not, I am bringing Elena to the hospital myself. The line went dead. Scarlett sat in silence for a long moment, staring at the phone in her hand. Then she stood, tossed the cold coffee in the trash, and walked back toward Luca's room one last time before she left. She told herself it was just to check his vitals, to make sure he was stable. But when she pushed open the door and saw him lying there in the dim light, still breathing, still alive, something inside her chest cracked open. Luca's eyes were closed. His face was pale. Monitors beeped steadily beside the bed, tracking the rhythm of a heart that had stopped beating less than 3 hours ago. Scarlett walked closer. She should not be here, should not care this much, but her feet kept moving until she was standing beside his bed, staring down at the man who had once been everything to her. "You do not get to do this," she whispered. "You do not get to come back into my life and make me feel things I buried 7 years ago." Luca did not answer. Of course he did not. He was unconscious. But Scarlett kept talking anyway. "I spent 7 years hating you. 7 years convincing myself that I was better off without you. That Elena was better off without you. And I almost believed it." Her voice cracked. "But then you showed up bleeding on my table, and everything I built to protect myself just fell apart." She reached out and brushed a strand of dark hair away from Luca's forehead. The touch was gentle, instinctive. The same way she used to touch him when they were together. "I do not know what to do," she whispered. "I do not know how to protect Elena from you. I do not know how to protect myself from you. I do not even know if I want to anymore." Her pager buzzed. She pulled back like she had been burned and glanced at the screen. "Meet me in my office now. Angela." Scarlett exhaled slowly. Then she turned and walked out before she could do something stupid, like stay. Angela's office was a cramped space on the 3rd floor, filled with medical journals, patient files, and empty coffee cups that had been sitting there so long they had grown mold. Angela sat behind her desk with her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. "Close the door," she said. Scarlett obeyed. Angela waited until the door clicked shut before she spoke. "You want to tell me what the hell is going on?" "I do not know what you mean. Do not play dumb with me, Scarlett. I have known you for 6 years. I have seen you perform surgery on dying patients without flinching. I have seen you work 30-hour shifts without breaking a sweat. But tonight," Angela leaned forward, "tonight you almost lost it in that operating room. And then you stayed here all night watching over a patient who should be just another case to you." Scarlett's jaw tightened. "He is not just another case. No shit." "So who is he?" Scarlett did not answer. Angela's eyes narrowed. "Scarlett, who is that man? Someone I used to know. Used to know or used to love?" The words hit harder than they should have. Scarlett turned away and stared out the window at the city lights, bleeding through the rain. "It does not matter. Like hell it does not. You are emotionally compromised. You should not be treating him. I am fine. You are not fine. You are barely holding it together. I said I am fine." Scarlett's voice echoed through the small office. Angela did not flinch. "If you cannot be honest with me, at least be honest with yourself. That man means something to you. And whatever happened between you two, it is eating you alive." Scarlett closed her eyes. She wanted to deny it. Wanted to shove the emotions back down into the dark hole where they belonged. But she was so tired of lying. "He is Elena's father," she said quietly. Angela went very still. "What? Luca Moretti? The man in that ICU bed. He is Elena's father." For 3 seconds, Angela did not move. Then she stood up so fast her chair slammed against the wall. "Are you serious?" Scarlett nodded. "The same man who disappeared 7 years ago?" "Yes." "The same man who left you pregnant and alone?" "Yes, and you are treating him?" "I did not have a choice. He was dying." "There is always a choice, Scarlett." Angela's voice cracked. "You could have handed him off to another surgeon. You could have recused yourself. Instead, you stood over his body for 3 hours, cutting him open and putting him back together like he did not destroy your life. Because he did not." The words ripped out of Scarlett before she could stop them. "He left to protect me. There was a war inside his organization, and someone threatened to kill me if he did not disappear. So he left. He gave up everything to keep me safe, and I never knew." Angela stared at her. "I do not know, Scarlett. I do not know, okay? I want to believe him, but I also spent 7 years hating him, and I do not know how to just turn that off because he had a good reason for leaving." Angela exhaled slowly and sank back into her chair. "Does Elena know?" "No." "Are you going to tell her?" "I do not know." "Does he want to meet her?" Scarlett's throat tightened. "Yes." Angela rubbed her temples. "Jesus Christ, Scarlett. This is a mess. I know. What are you going to do?" "I do not know. You keep saying that. Because I do not have answers." Scarlett's voice broke. "I do not know what to do. I do not know how to protect my daughter from a man who spent the last 7 years living in a world of violence and crime. I do not know how to explain to her that the father she has always wanted is lying in a hospital bed 20 floors above us. And I do not know how to deal with the fact that despite everything he did, She stopped. Angela's expression softened. You still love him. Scarlett did not answer. She did not have to. The silence said everything. Angela stood and walked around the desk. She placed both hands on Scarlett's shoulders and looked her straight in the eye. Listen to me. I do not know Luca Moretti. I do not know what kind of man he is, or what kind of father he will be, but I know you, and I know you have spent 7 years putting Elena first. So whatever you decide, make sure it is what is best for her. Not for him. Not for you, for her. Scarlett nodded, her eyes burning with unshed tears. Now go home, Angela said gently. Get some sleep, hug your daughter, and figure out what the hell you are going to do tomorrow. Scarlett left the office without another word. But as she walked toward the elevator, her phone buzzed again. Another text from Mrs. Chen. Elena is still awake. She says she will not sleep until you are home. Scarlett closed her eyes. Then she pressed the button for the ground floor and headed toward the exit. The apartment was dark when Scarlett walked in. She closed the door quietly and kicked off her shoes, trying not to wake anyone. But before she could take 2 steps, a small voice called out from the hallway. Mama? Scarlett's heart clenched. Elena stood in the doorway of her bedroom, wearing pink pajamas with cartoon cats on them. Her dark curls were messy from sleep, and her gray eyes, Luca's eyes, were red from crying. Hey, baby, Scarlett whispered. Elena ran toward her. Scarlett caught her and lifted her up, holding her tight while Elena wrapped her arms around her neck and buried her face in Scarlett's shoulder. I missed you, Elena whispered. I missed you too, sweetheart. Why do you always have to work so late? Scarlett's throat tightened. Because there are people who need my help, but I need you too. The words broke something inside Scarlett's chest. She carried Elena to the couch and sat down, cradling her daughter in her lap the way she used to when Elena was a baby. I know, baby. I am sorry. I am trying to be better. Elena pulled back and looked up at her with those impossibly serious gray eyes. Mama? Yeah? Do you think my daddy is ever coming back? Scarlett froze. Elena had asked about her father before, usually around holidays or when her classmates talked about their dads. But Scarlett had always managed to deflect the question with vague answers about how her daddy loved her very much, but could not be here right now. But tonight, with Luca lying in a hospital bed 20 blocks away, the lie felt heavier than ever. Elena stopped. Scarlett took a deep breath. Your daddy is not a firefighter or a doctor. Then what is he? Scarlett hesitated. What was she supposed to say? That Elena's father was a mafia boss who had spent the last 7 years dismantling a criminal empire from the inside. That he had left before Elena was born to protect them from people who wanted them dead? That he was currently recovering from multiple gunshot wounds in the ICU? None of those were answers a 7-year-old needed to hear. He is complicated, Scarlett said finally. Elena frowned. What does that mean? It means he made some hard choices a long time ago, and those choices meant he could not be here with us. Did he not want me? No. Scarlett's voice came out sharper than she intended. She softened it immediately. No, baby. That is not it at all. He did not even know you existed. Elena's eyes widened. He did not know about me? Scarlett shook her head. No. I never got the chance to tell him. Why not? Because he left before I could. Elena was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then she looked up at Scarlett with an expression far too serious for a 7-year-old. If he knew about me, would he come back? Scarlett's chest tightened. Because the answer was yes. She had seen it in Luca's eyes when she told him about Elena. The devastation, the regret, the desperate need to meet the daughter he never knew he had. I think so, Scarlett said quietly. Elena's face lit up. Really? Yeah. Then we should tell him. Scarlett's stomach twisted. It is not that simple, baby. Why not? Because your daddy's world is different from ours. It is dangerous. And I need to make sure that if he comes into our lives, he will not put you in danger. Elena's expression turned stubborn. I am not scared. I know you are not, but I am. Elena wrapped her small arms around Scarlett's neck again. You do not have to be scared, Mama. You are the bravest person I know. Scarlett's eyes burned with tears. She held Elena close and wondered how the hell she was supposed to protect this perfect little girl from the storm that was coming. Because Luca Moretti was not going to stay in that hospital bed forever. And when he woke up fully, when he recovered, when he came looking for answers, everything was going to change. Scarlett did not sleep that night. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling while Elena curled up beside her, breathing softly in her sleep. The apartment was quiet except for the distant sound of traffic and the occasional siren wailing through the city. Scarlett's phone sat on the nightstand. She kept waiting for it to ring. Kept waiting for the hospital to call and tell her that Luca had coded again, or that he had woken up asking for her, or that he had disappeared just like he had 7 years ago. But the phone stayed silent and Scarlett stayed awake. By the time the sun rose, she had made a decision. She was going to let Luca meet Elena, not because she trusted him, not because she had forgiven him, but because Elena deserved to know her father, and because Scarlett had spent 7 years lying to herself about how much Luca still meant to her, and she was tired of running. 3 days later, Luca was moved out of the ICU. His recovery had been faster than anyone expected. The bullets had been removed, the internal bleeding had stopped, and his vitals had stabilized enough that the medical team felt comfortable transferring him to a private recovery room on the 4th floor. Scarlett had avoided seeing him during those 3 days. She had assigned Angela to monitor his case and stayed as far away from his room as possible. But on the 4th morning, she got a text from Angela. "He is asking for you." Scarlett stared at the message for a long moment. Then she walked toward his room before she could change her mind. Luca was sitting up in bed when she entered. The bandages around his chest were still visible beneath the hospital gown, and there were dark circles under his eyes that had not been there before. But he looked stronger, more alert, more like the man she used to know. "Scarlett," he said quietly. She closed the door behind her. Angela said, "You wanted to see me." "Yeah. Why?" Luca exhaled slowly. "Because I need to apologize. You already did." "No. I apologized for leaving. I did not apologize for what I said after." He paused. "When I asked to meet Elena, I was not thinking about what that would mean for you. I was only thinking about myself, about how much I wanted to see her, and that was selfish." Scarlett crossed her arms. "Yeah, it was, so I am sorry, and if you do not want me anywhere near her, I will respect that." Scarlett studied his face. He meant it. She could see it in his eyes. "I have been thinking about it," she said slowly. Luca went very still. And I think Elena deserves to meet you. But there are rules, okay? First, you do not tell her who you are. Not yet. She is 7, Luca. She does not need to know that her father is a mafia boss." Luca flinched, but nodded. "Understood." "Second, if she gets scared or uncomfortable, we leave. No arguments, no pushing." "Agreed." And third, Scarlett's voice hardened. "If you hurt her, if you make promises you cannot keep, or if you disappear again, I will never forgive you. Do you understand?" Luca's jaw tightened. "I understand." "Good." Scarlett turned to leave, but Luca's voice stopped her. "Scarlett?" She looked back. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for giving me this chance." Scarlett did not answer. She just walked out before the emotions threatening to break through her carefully constructed walls could destroy her completely. That afternoon, Scarlett picked Elena up from school early. Elena was thrilled. She chattered nonstop in the car about her day, about the art project she had finished, about how her friend Sarah had gotten in trouble for talking during math class. Scarlett listened with half her attention while the other half focused on the impossible conversation she was about to have. When they pulled into the hospital parking garage, Elena's chatter stopped. "Why are we here?" she asked. Scarlett turned off the engine and looked at her daughter. "There is someone I want you to meet." Elena's eyes widened. "Who?" Scarlett took a deep breath. "Someone important. Someone who cares about you very much." Elena frowned, confused. "Do I know them?" "Not yet." They walked through the hospital together. Elena's small hand wrapped tightly around Scarlett's. The elevator ride to the 4th floor felt like it lasted forever. By the time they reached Luca's room, Scarlett's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. She stopped outside the door. Elena looked up at her. "Mama, are you okay?" Scarlett nodded, even though it was a lie. "Yeah, baby, I am fine." Then she pushed open the door. Luca was standing by the window. He changed out of the hospital gown and into a black t-shirt and jeans that someone must have brought him. The bandages were still visible beneath the shirt, and he moved carefully, like every breath hurt. But the moment he saw Elena, everything else disappeared. He froze. Elena froze. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then Elena whispered, "Who is he?" Scarlett's throat tightened. "This is Luca. He is an old friend of mine." Luca's eyes never left Elena's face. He looked like he was staring at something impossible. Something he had dreamed about but never thought he would actually see. "Hi, Elena," he said softly. Elena stepped closer, studying him with the same serious intensity she used when she was trying to solve a puzzle. "How do you know my name? Your mom told me about you." "She did?" Luca nodded. "She said you are smart and brave and that you love drawing." Elena's eyes lit up. "I do. I drew a picture of a dragon yesterday. Do you want to see it?" Luca's voice cracked. "I would love to." Elena pulled her backpack off and started digging through it, searching for the drawing. While she was distracted, Luca's eyes met Scarlett's across the room, and in that moment, Scarlett saw everything he was feeling. The joy, the grief, the overwhelming love for a daughter he had just met, and the soul-crushing knowledge that he had missed the first 7 years of her life. A single tear slid down Luca's face. He wiped it away quickly before Elena could see. Elena found the drawing and held it up proudly. "See? It is breathing fire." Luca crouched down, wincing slightly from the movement so he was eye level with her. "That is amazing. You are really talented." Elena beamed. "Thanks. Mama says I get it from her, but I do not think so. She cannot draw anything except hearts." Luca laughed. It was a broken sound, but it was real. And for the first time in 7 years, Scarlett saw something in Luca's eyes that had not been there before. Hope. Elena talked non-stop for the next 30 minutes. She told Luca about school, about her friends, about the science project she was working on, about how she wanted to be a veterinarian when she grew up because she loved animals. Luca listened to every word like it was the most important thing he had ever heard. And Scarlett stood by the door watching them, her heart breaking and healing at the same time. Because this was what Elena had always wanted. A father who paid attention, who cared, who looked at her like she was the most important person in the world. And despite everything Luca had done, despite all the lies and the pain and the years of absence, he was giving Elena exactly that. Eventually, Elena yawned. Scarlett stepped forward. "Okay, baby, it is time to go. Luca needs to rest." Elena pouted. "But I do not want to leave yet. I know. But we will come back soon, I promise." Elena turned to Luca. "Will you still be here tomorrow?" Luca glanced at Scarlett. Scarlett nodded. "Yeah." Luca said softly, "I will be here." Elena smiled. Then, without warning, she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around Luca's waist in a tight hug. Luca went rigid. For 3 seconds, he did not move. Then his arms came up slowly and wrapped around her, holding her like she was made of glass. Scarlett's vision blurred with tears. When Elena finally pulled back, she looked up at Luca with those serious gray eyes. "I am glad I met you." Luca's voice broke. "I am glad I met you too." Scarlett took Elena's hand and led her toward the door. But before they left, she looked back at Luca one last time. Their eyes met. And in that moment, Scarlett realized something terrifying. She was not just letting Luca meet Elena. She was letting him back into her life. And there was no going back from this. That night, Elena fell asleep almost immediately. Scarlett sat beside her bed, stroking her daughter's dark curls and trying to process everything that had happened. Elena had liked Luca, more than liked him. She had hugged him, laughed with him, connected with him in a way that Scarlett had not expected. And now Scarlett had to figure out what the hell came next. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Thank you, L." Scarlett stared at the message. She should not respond. She would delete the number and pretend she never saw it. But her fingers were already typing. "She liked you." The response came immediately. "She is perfect." "Yeah, she is. She looks just like you." Scarlett's chest tightened. "She has your eyes." "Lucky her." Scarlett almost smiled. Then another message came through. "Can I see her again?" Scarlett hesitated. This was dangerous. Every instinct in her body screamed at her to cut this off now, before it went any further. But when she looked down at Elena sleeping peacefully beside her, she knew what her answer had to be. "Tomorrow. Same time. Thank you, Scarlett." She did not respond. Just turned off her phone and tried to ignore the way her heart was racing. Because she had just made a choice, and there was no going back. Luca was discharged from the hospital 2 days later. Scarlett was not supposed to be there when it happened. Angela had handled all the discharge paperwork, and Scarlett had intentionally scheduled herself for a surgery during the time Luca was supposed to leave. But the surgery got canceled, and when Scarlett walked past the fourth-floor recovery wing, she saw Luca standing by the elevator with a black duffel bag slung over his shoulder. He was not alone. 3 men in expensive suits flanked him, bodyguards, obviously. They moved with the kind of precision that came from years of training, their eyes constantly scanning the hallway for threats. Luca saw her immediately. For 3 seconds, they just stared at each other. Then one of the bodyguards stepped forward. "Mr. Moretti, we need to go." Luca ignored him. He walked towards Scarlett slowly, favoring his left side where the worst of the injuries had been. "You are leaving," Scarlett said. "Yeah. Where are you going?" Luca hesitated. "Somewhere safe. There are still people from my old organization who want me dead. I cannot stay in the city until I know they have been dealt with." Scarlett's stomach dropped. "What about Elena?" "I will come back. As soon as it is safe." "You said that 7 years ago." The words hung in the air like poison. Luca flinched. "I know, but this time is different." "How?" "Because this time I have something worth coming back for." Scarlett's throat tightened. One of the bodyguards spoke again, more urgently this time. "Mr. Moretti, we really need to move." Luca did not look away from Scarlett. "I meant what I said. I will come back. And when I do, I want to be part of her life. Part of both your lives, if you will let me." Scarlett did not answer. She could not. Because despite everything, despite the fear and the anger and the years of pain, part of her wanted him to come back. Part of her had never stopped wanting him, and that terrified her more than anything. Luca reached out and gently touched her hand. The contact sent electricity through her entire body. "I will call you," he said quietly. Then he turned and walked toward the elevator, his bodyguards closing ranks around him. Scarlett stood frozen in the hallway, her hands still tingling from his touch. The elevator doors closed, and Luca Moretti disappeared from her life for the second time. But this time, Scarlett knew he was coming back, and she did not know whether that made everything better or infinitely worse. 3 weeks passed. Luca called every night. Sometimes he talked to Elena, asking about her day and listening with infinite patience while she rambled about school and friends and the new book series she was reading. Sometimes he talked to Scarlett, his voice quiet and careful, asking how she was doing and whether she needed anything. He never told them where he was, never explained what he was doing. But Scarlett could hear it in his voice, the exhaustion. The violence lingering just beneath the surface, the sound of a man fighting a war he could not talk about. Elena did not notice. She just loved getting calls from Luca. She talked about him constantly at school, telling her friends about the cool guy her mom knew who called her every night and listened to all her stories. And every time Elena smiled while talking to him, Scarlett felt the walls around her heart crack a little more. Until one night, everything changed. Scarlett was cooking dinner when her phone rang. "Unknown number," she answered. "Hello?" Heavy breathing. Then a voice she did not recognize. "Dr. Vale?" Scarlett's blood went cold. "Who is this?" "My name does not matter. What matters is that Luca Moretti made some powerful enemies. And those enemies know about you, about your daughter." The world tilted sideways. Scarlett gripped the counter to steady herself. "What do you want?" "Nothing. This is a courtesy call. Luca killed my brother 3 days ago, so I am going to return the favor. I am going to take everything he loves and destroy it right in front of him." The line went dead. Scarlett's hand started shaking. She dropped the phone, ran to Elena's room. Elena was sitting on her bed, headphones on, watching videos on her tablet. She looked up when Scarlett burst through the door. "Mama? What is wrong?" Scarlett grabbed Elena and pulled her close, her mind racing. Someone knew about them. Someone was coming, and Luca was not here to stop them. Her phone rang again. She answered without looking. "Hello?" "Scarlett, it is me, Luca." "Someone just called me," Scarlett said, her voice shaking. "They said they know about Elena. They said they are coming for us." Luca's voice turned lethal. "Did they say who they were?" "No, they just said you killed their brother." Luca cursed. "Where are you right now?" "Home. Get out right now. Pack a bag, take Elena, and get somewhere public. A police station, a hospital, anywhere with people." "Luca, do it now, Scarlett." She hung up the phone and started moving. "Elena, we are leaving right now." Elena's eyes widened. "What? Why? I will explain later. Just grab your backpack and your coat. They moved fast. Scarlett threw clothes into a bag while Elena scrambled around her room collecting her things. Within 5 minutes, they were heading toward the door, and then Scarlett heard it. Footsteps in the hallway outside. Slow, deliberate. Someone was already here. Scarlett's heart stopped. She grabbed Elena's hand and pulled her toward the back bedroom. "Mama, what is happening?" Elena whispered, her voice terrified. "Shh, it is okay, baby. Just stay quiet." Scarlett locked the bedroom door and pushed Elena toward the window. They were on the 3rd floor, too high to jump, but there was a fire escape. The apartment door exploded inward. Elena screamed. Scarlett shoved her daughter behind her and grabbed the only weapon she could find. A heavy lamp from the nightstand. Footsteps echoed through the apartment, getting closer. Scarlett's hand shook as she positioned herself between Elena and the bedroom door. This was it. This was how they were going to die. Because of Luca. Because of his world. Because she had been stupid enough to let him back into their lives. The bedroom door handle turned. Scarlett raised the lamp, and then the entire world exploded into gunfire. Glass shattered. Wood splintered. Voices shouted. Someone screamed. Elena sobbed behind her. Scarlett did not move. Could not move. Then the bedroom door burst open, and Luca Moretti stood in the doorway covered in blood, a gun in his hand, his eyes wild and feral. "Are you hurt?" he demanded. Scarlett shook her head, unable to speak. Luca crossed the room in 2 strides and pulled both of them into his arms. "You are safe," he whispered against Scarlett's hair. "I have got you. You are safe." But Scarlett knew the truth. They would never be safe. Not as long as Luca's past kept hunting them. And in that moment, she realized something that made her blood run cold. There was no going back anymore. No running. No pretending they could have a normal life. Luca Moretti had dragged them into his world, and the only way out was through. The silence after the gunfire was worse than the noise. Scarlett stood frozen in the bedroom with Elena trembling against her chest, and Luca's arms wrapped around them both. Her ears rang, her hands shook, the smell of gunpowder and blood filled the air so thick she could taste it. "Mama," Elena whispered. "Mama, I am scared." Scarlett could not answer. Her voice had disappeared somewhere between the moment the door exploded inward and the moment Luca appeared like some avenging ghost covered in someone else's blood. Luca pulled back slowly, his hands moving to cup Scarlett's face. "Look at me." She could not. "Scarlett, look at me." She forced her eyes up. Luca's face was splattered with blood, but his eyes were clear, focused. The kind of terrifying calm that only came from someone who had lived through this kind of violence so many times. It did not even faze him anymore. "Are you hurt?" he asked again. Scarlett shook her head. "Elena?" "She is fine," Scarlett managed. Luca exhaled, and for just a second the mask cracked. Relief flooded his expression so intense it looked like pain. Then he locked it down again and turned toward the door. "Stay here. Do not move. Do not make a sound. Luca, I need to make sure they are all down." He disappeared into the hallway before Scarlett could stop him. Elena sobbed against her chest. "Mama, what is happening? Who were those men? Why did they have guns?" Scarlett had no answers. She just held her daughter and tried to keep breathing while her entire world collapsed around her. Footsteps echoed through the apartment. Voices. Luca's voice, low and commanding, speaking to someone Scarlett could not see. Then, silence again. Luca reappeared in the doorway. "It is clear, but we need to move, now." "Move where?" "Somewhere safe." "Luca, what the hell is going on?" "I will explain later. Right now we need to get you both out of this building before the police show up." Scarlett's mind was still trying to process. The police. "Luca, there are dead men in my apartment." "I know. We cannot just leave." "Yes, we can, and we will." Luca's voice turned hard, because if the police get involved, they will start asking questions. And those questions will lead them straight to you and Elena. And the people who sent these men will know exactly where to find you. Scarlett's stomach twisted. He was right. As much as she wanted to call 911, to let the authorities handle this like normal people did when armed men broke into their homes, she could not. Because this was not a normal situation, and Luca Moretti was not a normal man. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, let us go." Luca moved fast. He grabbed Scarlett's bag, took Elena's hand, and led them through the apartment. Scarlett tried not to look at the bodies sprawled across her living room floor, but she could not help it. 3 men, all dead. Blood pooling beneath them, soaking into the carpet she had picked out 2 years ago when she had finally saved enough money to move into a decent place. Her home, destroyed. They took the back stairwell down to the parking garage. Luca's bodyguards were waiting beside a black SUV with tinted windows. One of them opened the back door, and Luca practically shoved Scarlett and Elena inside before climbing in after them. The SUV was moving before Scarlett could even process what was happening. Elena sat pressed against her side, silent now, her eyes wide and glassy with shock. Scarlett wrapped her arm around her daughter and tried to pretend everything was fine. But it was not fine. Nothing was fine. Luca sat across from them, his phone pressed to his ear, speaking in rapid-fire Italian to someone on the other end. Scarlett caught enough words to understand he was organizing something. Safe houses, security teams, cleanup crews to handle the mess they had left behind. When he finally hung up, he looked at Scarlett. "I am sorry," he said quietly. Scarlett laughed. It was a broken, bitter sound. "You are sorry? 3 men just tried to kill us because of you, and you are sorry?" Luca flinched. "I did not know they had found you this fast." "How did they find us at all?" "You do not know?" "Luca, you told me you had handled this. You told me you dismantled your organization. You told me we were safe. I thought we were." "Well, you thought wrong," Elena whimpered. Scarlett immediately softened her voice and pulled Elena closer. "It is okay, baby. Mama's not mad at you. Are we going to die?" Elena whispered. Scarlett's heart shattered. "No," Luca said before Scarlett could answer. His voice was firm, absolute. "No one is going to hurt you. I promise." Elena looked at him with those impossibly serious gray eyes. "How do you know?" "Because I will not let them." It should have sounded arrogant, overconfident. But the way Luca said it, with the kind of certainty that came from someone who had killed 3 men without hesitation to protect them, made Scarlett believe him. And that terrified her even more. The safe house was in New Jersey, a sprawling estate hidden behind iron gates and surrounded by enough security cameras and armed guards to make Fort Knox look vulnerable. Luca's men had cleared the building before they arrived, sweeping every room for threats. And now Scarlett and Elena sat in a massive living room that felt more like a museum than a home. Elena had finally fallen asleep on the couch, exhausted from crying. Scarlett sat beside her, one hand resting on Elena's back, watching her daughter breathe. Luca stood by the window, staring out at the darkness. They had not spoken since they had arrived. Finally, Scarlett broke the silence. Who were they? Luca did not turn around. Remnants of my old organization, the DeLuca family. I thought I had eliminated their leadership 3 weeks ago, but apparently I missed someone. The brother. Yeah, and now he is coming for us. Luca's jaw tightened. Not anymore. He sent his men after you, which means he exposed his location. My people are tracking him down right now. Scarlett's hands curled into fists. Your people, your organization, your war. Her voice cracked. This is your fault, Luca. I know. Do you? Because Elena just watched armed men break into our home. She just asked me if we were going to die. She is 7 years old, and she is terrified because of you. Luca turned slowly. The look on his face was devastating. I know, he said again, his voice raw, and I would give anything to take that fear away from her, from you, but I cannot change what happened. All I can do is make sure it never happens again. How? By killing everyone who comes after us. By turning our lives into a war zone? If that is what it takes, that is not an answer. It is the only answer I have. The words echoed through the room. Elena stirred but did not wake. Scarlett lowered her voice. I cannot do this, Luca. I cannot raise my daughter in a world where men with guns break down our door in the middle of the night. I cannot live looking over my shoulder every second wondering if today is the day someone finally gets through your security. You will not have to. Yes, I will, because that is your world. And no matter how many people you kill, there is always going to be someone else. Another enemy, another threat, another reason for Elena to be scared. Luca crossed the room and knelt in front of her. Up close, Scarlett could see the exhaustion carved into his face. The scars, the shadows of violence that would never fully wash away. You are right, he said quietly. My world is dangerous, it is brutal, and it is not the kind of place I want Elena anywhere near. But I did not choose this life because I wanted power or money or fear. I chose it because I was born into it. And by the time I was old enough to understand what that meant, it was too late to walk away. It is not too late now. Yes, it is. Because the only way to truly leave this world is to die. And I am not ready to die. Not when I just found you again. Not when I just met my daughter. Scarlett's throat tightened. Luca reached out and took her hand. I know I do not deserve your forgiveness. I know I do not deserve a second chance. But I am asking for one anyway. Not for me, for Elena. Because she deserves to have a father who will protect her. Who will fight for her. Who will die for her if that is what it takes. Scarlett pulled her hand away. Elena does not need a father who is willing to die for her. She needs a father who is willing to live for her. And you cannot do that if you are constantly at war. Luca did not have an answer for that. He just stood and walked back to the window, his shoulders rigid with tension. Scarlett watched him for a long moment. Then she carefully lifted Elena and carried her upstairs to one of the bedrooms. Scarlett did not sleep that night. She lay beside Elena in the massive bed, staring at the ceiling and trying to figure out what the hell she was supposed to do. Stay with Luca and risk Elena's life, or run and spend the rest of their lives looking over their shoulders. Neither option felt right, but she did not have a third choice. Around 3 a.m, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. A text from Angela. Are you okay? I heard about your apartment. Call me. Scarlett closed her eyes. She had completely forgotten about the outside world, about her job, about the life she had built that had just been destroyed in a single night. She typed back quickly. I am fine. Elena is fine. I will explain later. Angela's response was immediate. Where are you? Somewhere safe. Scarlett, what the hell is going on? Scarlett did not answer. She just turned off her phone and tried not to think about how many lies she was going to have to tell to keep the people she loved safe. The next morning, Luca called a meeting. Scarlett left Elena with one of Luca's security team, a woman named Maria, who looked like she could break someone's neck with her bare hands, but spoke to Elena with surprising gentleness, and followed Luca down to the basement. The space had been converted into some kind of operation center. Multiple monitors lined the walls, displaying security camera feeds, maps, and what looked like surveillance photos of various men Scarlett did not recognize. 3 of Luca's people were already there. 2 men and 1 woman, all dressed in black, all carrying weapons. Luca gestured for Scarlett to sit. She stayed standing. We have located Marco De Luca, Luca said without preamble. He is holed up in a warehouse in Queens with what is left of his crew. My team is ready to move on him tonight. And then what? Scarlett asked. Then the threat is eliminated. Until the next one. Luca's jaw tightened. There will not be a next one. Marco is the last surviving member of the De Luca family leadership. Once he is gone, there is no one left with the resources or connections to come after you. You do not know that. Yes, I do. How? Luca hesitated. Then he reached for one of the monitors and pulled up a series of documents, financial records, wire transfers, names and dates that meant nothing to Scarlett. I have spent the last 7 years dismantling my father's empire piece by piece, Luca said. I shut down the trafficking operations, burned the drug routes, cut ties with every corrupt politician and dirty cop on the payroll. The only reason Marco De Luca is still alive is because he went into hiding before I could reach him. But now he has exposed himself. And once he is dead, there is no one left. Scarlett stared at the documents. You really did it, she whispered. You destroyed everything. Yes, why? Luca looked at her. Because the empire my father built was poison. And I did not want that poison anywhere near you. Scarlett's chest tightened. She wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that one more death would be enough to finally end this nightmare. But something in her gut told her it was not that simple. What happens after Marco is dead? She asked quietly. You and Elena can go home. Can we? Yes. And you? Luca did not answer. Scarlett's stomach dropped. You are not coming with us. I cannot. Why not? Because even with Marco gone, there are still people out there who know my name, who know what I did. And as long as I am close to you and Elena, you will always be targets. Scarlett's hands curled into fists. So what are you saying? You are just going to disappear again? I am saying I will keep my distance until I am sure you are safe. That is the same thing. No, it is not. This time, you will know where I am. You will be able to reach me. And the moment Elena needs me, I will be there. She needs you now, Luca. I know. Luca's expression cracked. I do not have a choice. Yes, you do. You always have a choice. You are just choosing your war over your daughter. That is not fair. Is not it? Because from where I am standing, it looks like you are doing the exact same thing you did 7 years ago. You are running away because it is easier than staying and fighting for us. Luca flinched like she had slapped him. One of his men cleared his throat. Boss, we need to move if we are going to hit the warehouse tonight. Luca did not look away from Scarlett. Give me a minute. The team filed out of the room. The silence that followed was suffocating. Finally, Luca spoke. You are right, he said quietly. I am running. Because staying puts you in danger, and I cannot live with that. So you are choosing to live without us instead. Yes. Scarlett's vision blurred with tears. Then you are a coward, she whispered. Luca's jaw tightened, but he did not argue. Scarlett turned and walked toward the door. But before she left, she looked back one last time. Elena is going to ask where you went, and I am going to tell her the truth, that you left. Again. And this time, do not bother coming back. Then she walked out before he could see her fall apart. That night, Luca and his team left for Queens. Scarlett watched from the upstairs window as the convoy of black SUVs disappeared down the driveway. Maria stayed behind with a skeleton security crew to guard the safe house. Elena was asleep. Scarlett sat in the hallway outside her daughter's room with her back against the wall and her phone in her hand. She wanted to call Luca, wanted to tell him to be careful, wanted to tell him she did not mean what she had said earlier, but she could not, because she had meant it. Luca was choosing his past over their future, and she was done waiting for him to choose differently. Around midnight, her phone rang. Unknown number. Scarlett answered. Hello, Dr. Vale? The voice was calm, professional. My name is Vincent Caruso. I am an associate of Marco De Luca. Scarlett's blood went cold. How did you get this number? That is not important. What is important is that Luca Moretti is about to walk into a trap. And unless you do exactly what I say, he is going to die tonight. Scarlett's heart stopped. What are you talking about? Marco knew Luca would come for him, so he set up an ambush. The warehouse in Queens is rigged with explosives. The moment Luca's team enters the building, it is going to blow. You are lying. Am I? Call him. Warn him. See if he picks up. Scarlett's hands shook as she pulled the phone away from her ear and dialed Luca's number. It went straight to voicemail. She tried again. Voicemail. Her stomach twisted. Vincent's voice came through the speaker. He is already inside, is not he? Scarlett could not breathe. What do you want, Simple? You and the girl, in exchange for Luca's life. No. Then he dies, along with everyone on his team. Scarlett's mind raced. This was a trap. It had to be. But what if it was not? What if Luca really was walking into an ambush right now, and she was the only person who could stop it? How do I know you are telling the truth? She whispered. You do not. But are you willing to bet Luca's life on it? Scarlett closed her eyes. She had two choices. Trust Vincent and hand herself and Elena over to the same people who tried to kill them yesterday, or ignore him and hope he was lying. Either way, someone was going to die. Where? She said finally. Vincent gave her an address in Brooklyn. You have 30 minutes, he said. Come alone. Bring the girl. And if I see any of Moretti's people, the warehouse blows immediately. The line went dead. Scarlett sat frozen for 3 seconds. Then she stood and walked toward Elena's room. She knew this was insane. Knew she was walking into another trap. But she could not let Luca die. Not like this. Not when she just told him she never wanted to see him again. She woke Elena gently. Baby, we need to go. Elena blinked sleepily. Where? I will explain in the car, but we need to be very quiet, okay? Elena nodded. Scarlett grabbed her daughter's hand and led her downstairs. Maria was in the kitchen drinking coffee. She looked up when Scarlett appeared. Dr. Vale? Is everything okay? Yeah. Elena could not sleep. I am going to take her for a drive. Maria frowned. I do not think that is a good idea. Mr. Moretti left strict instructions. I do not care what Luca's instructions were. My daughter needs fresh air, and I am taking her. Maria stood. I cannot let you leave without clearing it with. Scarlett grabbed the heavy ceramic vase from the hallway table and swung it at Maria's head. The impact was sickening. Maria crumpled to the floor, unconscious. Elena screamed. Scarlett dropped the vase and grabbed Elena's hand. I am sorry, baby. I am so sorry. But we have to go, right now. They ran for the garage. Scarlett found keys to one of the SUVs hanging on a hook by the door. She shoved Elena into the back seat, climbed behind the wheel, and floored the gas pedal. The gates were closed. Scarlett did not slow down. She aimed the SUV straight at the iron bars and braced for impact. The collision was deafening. Metal screamed, glass shattered, but the gates gave way. The SUV burst through and out onto the dark road beyond. Scarlett's hand shook on the wheel. Behind her, Elena sobbed. "Mama, what is happening? Where are we going?" Scarlett could not answer because she did not know. All she knew was that she had just betrayed Luca's trust, assaulted one of his people, and was driving straight into an ambush with her daughter in the back seat. And there was no turning back now. The address Vincent had given her led to an abandoned factory in Brooklyn. The building loomed against the night sky like a corpse, all broken windows and rusted metal. Scarlett pulled up to the entrance and killed the engine. Her phone rang. "Vincent." "Good," he said. "You came. Now get out of the car. Bring the girl. Walk to the loading dock on the east side of the building. I want proof Luca is still alive. You are not in a position to make demands, Dr. Vale. Then I am leaving." Vincent was quiet for a moment. Then another voice came on the line. "Scarlett, do not do this. Luca." His voice was strained, rough, but alive. "Luca," Scarlett whispered. "They are lying to you. The warehouse was not rigged. This whole thing is a setup to get you and Elena." Scarlett's stomach dropped. "I am sorry," she whispered. "Do not apologize. Just turn around and drive away right now." Vincent's voice cut back in. "You have 10 seconds to get out of that car, Dr. Vale, or I put a bullet in Moretti's head." Scarlett's hand shook. "Scarlett, do not." A gunshot cracked through the phone. Scarlett screamed, then silence. "That was a warning," Vincent said calmly. "The next one goes through his skull. Now move." Scarlett could not breathe, could not think. She looked back at Elena, who was crying silently in the back seat. Then she opened the door and stepped out into the night. "Mama, no!" Elena shouted. "Stay in the car, baby. Bring the girl," Vincent said. Scarlett's chest tightened. She opened the back door and lifted Elena into her arms. Then she walked toward the loading dock. The moment she stepped inside the building, armed men surrounded her, 6 of them, all pointing guns at her head. Vincent Caruso stepped out of the shadows. He was younger than Scarlett expected, mid-30s, expensive suit, cold eyes. "Dr. Vale," he said. "So glad you could join us." Scarlett held Elena tighter. "Where is Luca?" Vincent gestured toward the back of the room. Luca was on his knees with his hands zip-tied behind his back and blood streaming down the side of his face. 2 men stood behind him, guns pressed against the back of his head. His eyes met Scarlett's, and the look on his face destroyed her. Rage, desperation, and underneath it all, love so fierce it burned. "Let them go," Luca said, his voice raw. "This is between you and me." Vincent smiled. "You are right, it is. But where is the fun in just killing you? I want you to watch everything you love die first, just like I had to watch when you killed my brother." Scarlett's blood turned to ice. "Marco DeLuca was your brother," she whispered. "Half-brother. But yes, then why is not he here?" Vincent's smile widened. "Because Marco is dead. Has been for 3 hours. Your boyfriend's team blew up the warehouse just like they planned. But what Luca did not know is that Marco was not inside. I was, and I let them think they had won." Luca's expression turned murderous. "You set me up. I set you up. And now I am going to take everything from you the same way you took everything from me." He raised his gun, pointed it at Elena. Scarlett's world stopped. "No," Luca roared. He lunged forward despite the guns at his head. Gunfire exploded through the factory. Scarlett threw herself over Elena, covering her daughter's body with her own. She waited for the bullet, waited for the pain, but it never came. When she looked up, Luca was standing. The zip ties hung broken from his wrists. Vincent Caruso lay on the ground with his throat slit, and Luca's men were pouring through the doors, cutting down the remaining guards in a storm of violence that lasted less than 10 seconds. Then silence. Luca crossed the room in 3 strides and dropped to his knees beside Scarlett and Elena. "Are you hurt?" he demanded. Scarlett shook her head, unable to speak. Luca pulled both of them into his arms and held them so tight, Scarlett thought her ribs might crack. "I thought I lost you," he whispered against her hair. Scarlett could not answer, because she had just realized something that made her entire body go numb. She had walked straight into Vincent's trap. She had brought Elena into a building full of armed men. She had almost gotten her daughter killed, all because she had been stupid enough to believe she could save Luca. And now, as she looked around at the bodies scattered across the factory floor, at the blood soaking into the concrete, at the gun still clutched in Luca's hand, she understood the truth. There was no escaping this world, no running from it, no protecting Elena from it. Because as long as Luca Moretti was in their lives, violence would follow. And Scarlett had just proven that she was willing to risk everything, even her daughter's life, to save him. She pulled away from Luca's embrace and stood on shaking legs. "We need to leave," she said quietly. Luca nodded. "My men will clean this up." "No. I mean, we need to leave, Elena and I. We need to go somewhere you cannot find us." Luca froze. "What? This?" Scarlett gestured at the carnage surrounding them. "This is your life, Luca, and I cannot let Elena be part of it anymore. Scarlett, I almost got her killed tonight. Do you understand that? I brought my 7-year-old daughter into a building full of men who wanted to murder her, and I did it because I was trying to save you." Her voice cracked. "I cannot do that again. I will not." Luca's face went pale. "Please do not do this. I have to. Scarlett, I love you. I love Elena. I will do anything. Then let us go." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Luca looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay, if that is what you need, I will let you go." Scarlett's chest cracked open. She had expected him to fight, to argue, to refuse, but he was just letting her leave, just like he had 7 years ago. She lifted Elena into her arms and walked toward the door without looking back. Because if she looked back, she would break, and she could not afford to break, not when her daughter's life depended on her staying strong. But as she stepped out into the cold night air, one thought echoed through her mind. She had just lost Luca Moretti for the second time, and this time it was her choice. Scarlett drove through the night with no destination in mind, just away. Away from the factory, away from the bodies, away from Luca. Elena had fallen asleep in the back seat 20 minutes ago, her face still streaked with tears. Scarlett kept checking the rearview mirror, watching her daughter's chest rise and fall, making sure she was still breathing, still alive, still safe. The word felt like a lie. They would never be safe. Not really. Not as long as people knew Luca Moretti had a daughter. Scarlett's phone had been ringing nonstop for the past hour, Luca's number flashing across the screen over and over again. She had ignored every call, deleted every voicemail without listening, because if she heard his voice, she would turn the car around. And she could not afford to be that weak. Not anymore. Around 4 in the morning, she pulled into a cheap motel off the highway in Pennsylvania. The kind of place that did not ask questions and took cash. She carried Elena inside, got a room key from a half-asleep clerk, and locked the door behind them. The room smelled like cigarettes and mold. Elena stirred when Scarlett laid her on the bed. "Mama? I am here, baby. Where are we?" "Somewhere safe." Another lie. Elena's eyes were still half closed. "Is Luca coming?" Scarlett's throat tightened. "No." "Why not?" "Because he cannot be with us right now." "Did he leave again?" The words hit like a knife. Scarlett smoothed Elena's hair back from her forehead. "It is complicated. You always say that." "I know." Elena was quiet for a moment. Then she whispered, "I miss him." Scarlett's chest cracked open. She wanted to say she missed him too. Wanted to admit that walking away from Luca in that factory had felt like ripping out her own heart. But she could not. Because she was the mother, the protector, and her job was to keep Elena safe, no matter how much it destroyed her. "Get some sleep," Scarlett whispered. "We will figure everything out tomorrow." Elena closed her eyes. Within minutes, she was asleep again. Scarlett sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her phone. 17 missed calls from Luca. 23 text messages. She opened the most recent one. "Please talk to me." Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She wanted to respond. Wanted to tell him she was sorry for walking away. Wanted to tell him she did not know how to do this without him. But before she could type anything, another message came through. "I know you are scared. I know you think running is the only way to protect Elena. But you are wrong. The safest place for both of you is with me." Scarlett's hand shook. She typed back before she could stop herself. "Your world almost got her killed." The response was immediate. "My world is the only reason she is still alive. That is not good enough." "Then what is? Tell me what I need to do, and I will do it." Scarlett closed her eyes. What did she need? She needed Luca to stop being who he was. She needed him to walk away from the violence and the danger and the empire he had spent 7 years dismantling. She needed him to be a normal man, with a normal life who could take Elena to school in the morning and tuck her in at night without worrying about assassins and ambushes. But that was not who Luca was, and it never would be. There is nothing you can do. I am sorry. She turned off her phone before he could respond. Then she lay down beside Elena and tried to convince herself she had made the right choice. Scarlett woke to sunlight streaming through the motel curtains and the sound of someone pounding on the door. She jerked upright, her heart slamming against her ribs. Elena sat up too, her eyes wide. "Mama?" The pounding came again. Louder this time. "Dr. Vale, open the door." Scarlett's blood went cold. She recognized that voice. Angela. What the hell was Angela doing here? Scarlett climbed out of bed and moved to the door. She looked through the peephole. Angela stood outside, wearing jeans and a leather jacket, her expression furious. Scarlett opened the door slowly. "How did you find me?" Angela pushed past her into the room. "I put a tracker on your phone 6 months ago after you started working late shifts alone. I was worried about you walking to your car at night." She turned to face Scarlett. "Guess it came in handy." Scarlett's hands curled into fists. "You need to leave." "Like hell I do. You disappeared from a safe house, assaulted one of Moretti's people, and drove 3 hours into the middle of nowhere with Elena. Do you have any idea how many laws you just broke? I was protecting my daughter by kidnapping her and running away. I did not kidnap her. She is my daughter. And Luca's daughter too." The words hit harder than they should have. Scarlett turned away. "He does not get to claim her, not after everything he has done." Angela's voice softened. "What exactly has he done, Scarlett?" "From where I am standing, he saved your life. Multiple times. He also put us in danger in the first place." "No. The people who wanted him dead put you in danger. There is a difference." Scarlett did not answer. Angela stepped closer. "Talk to me. What happened at that factory?" Scarlett's throat tightened. She had not told anyone what happened, had not let herself think about it. But now, with Angela standing in front of her demanding answers, the words came pouring out. "I walked into a trap. I brought Elena into a building full of armed men because I thought I was saving Luca, and I almost got her killed." Her voice cracked. "I almost lost my daughter because I was stupid enough to believe I could fix this." Angela was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "But you did not lose her. That is not the point." "Yes, it is. Because despite everything that happened, Elena is safe. She is alive. And she is sitting right there." Angela gestured toward the bed where Elena was watching them with wide eyes. "So instead of punishing yourself for making a mistake, maybe you should focus on what comes next. What comes next is we disappear. We change our names. We move somewhere Luca cannot find us. And we start over. You really think that is going to work? It has to." Angela shook her head. "You can run as far as you want, Scarlett, but Elena is still going to ask about her father. And eventually she is going to resent you for keeping him away from her. Better resentment than dead. Is it?" Scarlett opened her mouth to argue, but her phone buzzed. She had forgotten she had turned it back on. A text from an unknown number. "We have Angela Chen's location. If you want her to live, you will come back to New York alone. DC." Scarlett's heart stopped. Angela frowned. "What is wrong?" Scarlett showed her the message. Angela's face went pale. "DC? Who is DC?" Scarlett's mind raced. Then it hit her. Dominic Caruso, Vincent's cousin. The one Luca had mentioned was still out there. "We need to leave," Scarlett said. "Right now." "What? Why?" "Because they know you are here, which means they are coming." Angela's eyes widened. "Scarlett," the window exploded inward. Glass shattered across the room. Elena screamed. Scarlett grabbed her daughter and dove behind the bed. Gunfire tore through the motel room. Bullets ripped through drywall. Angela hit the floor. Scarlett could not see if she was hit, could not see anything except Elena's terrified face pressed against her chest. The gunfire stopped. Footsteps crunched across broken glass. "Dr. Vale?" A man's voice. Calm, professional. "Come out. We are not here to hurt you. We just want to talk." Scarlett did not move. "If you do not come out, we will drag you out, and your friend dies." Scarlett's hand shook. She looked at Elena. "Stay here. Do not move. Do not make a sound." "Mama, no. Do what I say." Scarlett kissed Elena's forehead. Then she stood slowly and raised her hands. 3 men stood in the ruins of the motel room, all armed, all pointing guns at her. The one in the middle was younger than the others, early 20s, dark hair, cold eyes that looked exactly like Vincent's. Dominic Caruso. Dr. Vale, he said. So nice to finally meet you. Scarlett's voice was ice. What do you want? Simple. Luca Moretti's head. But since he is proven difficult to kill, I will settle for the next best thing. Me and your daughter. Scarlett's blood turned to ice. No, you do not have a choice. There is always a choice. Dominic smiled. Not this time. He gestured to one of his men. The man moved toward the bed. Scarlett lunged forward. One of the other men grabbed her, slamming her against the wall. Pain exploded through her shoulder. Elena! Scarlett screamed. Run! But Elena did not run. She just sat frozen on the floor, crying. The man reached for her, and then the entire motel room exploded into chaos. Gunfire erupted from outside. Dominic's men scattered. Someone crashed through the door. Luca. He moved like death incarnate, gun raised, firing with surgical precision. 2 of Dominic's men went down before they could even turn around. The third one grabbed Scarlett and pressed a gun to her head. Luca froze. Dominic smiled. Drop the weapon, Moretti. Luca's eyes met Scarlett's, and in that moment the fear, the love. Let her go, Luca said quietly. I do not think so. You want me? Here I am. Let her go, and we will settle this. Dominic laughed. You really think I am that stupid? The moment I let her go, you will put a bullet in my head. Yes, I will. Then I guess we are at an impasse. The gun pressed harder against Scarlett's temple. She could feel the man's finger tightening on the trigger. This was it. This was how she was going to die. And Elena was going to watch. But then Angela moved. Scarlett had forgotten about her. Angela had been lying on the floor this whole time, bleeding from a wound in her side. But now she pushed herself up, grabbed the heavy lamp from the nightstand, and swung it at the man holding Scarlett. The impact was brutal. The man's grip loosened. Scarlett tore free. Luca fired. The man went down. Dominic raised his gun toward Elena, and Scarlett threw herself in front of her daughter. The gunshot echoed through the room. Pain exploded through Scarlett's chest. She hit the floor hard, could not breathe, could not think, just pain, burning, spreading. Luca roared. More gunfire, then silence. Scarlett's vision blurred. She could hear Elena crying, could hear Luca shouting her name, but it all sounded so far away. She tried to speak, but blood filled her throat. Then Luca was there, his hands pressing against her chest, trying to stop the bleeding. Stay with me, he said. His voice was breaking. Scarlett, stay with me. Do not you dare die. Do not you dare leave me again. Scarlett tried to smile, tried to tell him she was sorry, tried to tell him she loved him. But the darkness was pulling her under, and she could not fight it anymore. The last thing she heard was Elena screaming for her mama. Then nothing. Scarlett woke to the smell of antiseptic and the steady beep of a heart monitor. Her entire body felt like it had been run over by a truck. She tried to move, but pain shot through her chest so sharp it stole her breath. Do not move, Luca's voice. She turned her head slowly. He sat in a chair beside the hospital bed, his elbows on his knees, his face buried in his hands. He looked like he had not slept in days. His clothes were rumpled and stained with blood. Her blood! Luca, she whispered. His head snapped up. For 3 seconds, he just stared at her. Then he was on his feet, crossing to the bed, his hands reaching for hers. You are awake, he breathed. Thank God you are awake. Scarlett's throat was dry. Elena? She is safe. She is with Angela in the waiting room. Relief flooded through her. Angela is okay. She is fine. The bullet grazed her ribs. She will be sore for a few weeks, but she will recover. And Dominic? Luca's expression turned cold. Dead. Scarlett closed her eyes. It was over. Finally over. How long was I out? She asked. 3 days. You were in surgery for 7 hours. The bullet punctured your lung and nicked an artery. They almost lost you twice. Scarlett's hands tightened around his. I am sorry. Do not, Luca. Do not apologize. You threw yourself in front of a bullet to protect our daughter. You have nothing to be sorry for. Tears burned in Scarlett's eyes. I walked away from you. I know. I told you to let us go. I know. But you did not. Luca's voice cracked. How could I? You are everything to me, Scarlett, you and Elena, and I would rather die than let you face this world alone. Scarlett's chest tightened. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him she could protect herself. But the truth was, she could not. She had tried, and she had almost gotten everyone she loved killed. I do not know how to do this, she whispered. I do not know how to let you into our lives knowing that danger will always follow. Then we deal with it together. It is not that simple. Yes, it is. Luca leaned closer. I have spent 7 years trying to dismantle my father's empire, trying to make the world safe enough for you and Elena to exist in, and I failed. Because no matter how many enemies I eliminate, there is always going to be one more person seeking revenge, one more threat. He paused. But I am done running from it. I am done trying to protect you by staying away. Because the truth is, the only way to keep you safe is to be there, to stand between you and whatever comes next. And I am ready to do that for the rest of my life, if you will let me. Scarlett stared at him. At the man who had destroyed her life and rebuilt it. At the father who had missed 7 years, but was fighting every day to make up for them. At the person she had never stopped loving, no matter how hard she tried. I know, she whispered. Luca's eyes widened. You know? I know you will protect us. I know you will fight for us. I know you will die for us if that is what it takes. She paused. But I do not want you to die, Luca. I want you to live. I want you to be there when Elena graduates high school. I want you to walk her down the aisle someday. I want you to meet your grandchildren. And I want to grow old with you without wondering if today is the day someone finally catches up to your past. I want that too. Then give me something normal, just one thing. Something we can hold on to when everything else goes to hell. Luca was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. It was small, broken, but real. Marry me, he said. Scarlett's breath caught. What? Marry me. Not because I am trying to fix the past. Not because I owe you. But because I love you. Because I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Because you are the only person who has ever seen the worst parts of me and stayed anyway. Scarlett's vision blurred with tears. You already proposed to me 7 years ago. I know, but I am not that man anymore, and you are not the same woman you were. So I am asking again, as the people we are now, will you marry me, Scarlet Vale? Scarlett looked down at the engagement ring still on her finger, the one Luca had spent 2 years tracking down. The one that represented everything they had lost and everything they had found again. Yes, she whispered. Luca pulled her into his arms and kissed her. And for the first time in 7 years, Scarlett felt like they were finally moving forward instead of running from the past. They got married 6 months later. Not in a big ceremony with hundreds of guests and photographers and spectacle. Just a small gathering in a private chapel overlooking the Hudson River. Angela was there. A few of Luca's most trusted people, and Elena, wearing a white dress and carrying flowers, walking between her parents and holding both their hands. The officiant asked if they took each other for better or worse, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer. Scarlett thought about everything they had survived, the gunfights, the betrayals, the buildings collapsing around them, the years of separation and pain and fear, and she realized that they had already lived through the worst. Anything that came next would be survivable, because they would survive together. I do, she said. Luca's voice was steady. I do. The officiant pronounced them married. And when Luca kissed her, Elena cheered so loud it echoed through the chapel. The reception was small. Just dinner and dancing and cake. Elena insisted on dancing with Luca first, standing on his shoes while he waltzed her around the room. Scarlett watched them together, father and daughter, finally together. And she thought about the journey that had brought them here, the broken promises, the second chances, the choice to fight for each other instead of running away. Later, when Elena had fallen asleep in a chair with frosting on her face, Scarlett and Luca stood on the balcony overlooking the river. Do you regret it? Luca asked quietly. Regret what? Saying yes, marrying me, choosing this life. Scarlett thought about it. About the scars she would carry forever. About the nightmares that still woke her in the middle of the night. About the fact that their lives would never be truly normal. But then she thought about Elena's laugh. About the way Luca looked at their daughter, like she was the most important thing in the world. About the family they had built from the wreckage of their past. No, she said honestly. I do not regret it. Luca pulled her closer. Even after everything? Especially after everything. Because everything we survived made us who we are. And I would not change that. Luca rested his forehead against hers. And in that moment, Scarlett understood something she had not before. Love was not about finding someone perfect. It was about finding someone worth fighting for, someone worth surviving for, someone worth rebuilding your life around after the whole world burned down. And Luca Moretti, for all his flaws and darkness and violent past, was that person for her. 2 years later, Luca stood in an empty warehouse in Brooklyn. This was the last one, the final piece of his father's empire that still existed. He had spent the last 24 months dismantling everything else, shutting down operations, severing connections, burning bridges that could never be rebuilt. And now there was just this: one building, one legacy, one last tie to a world he wanted to leave behind forever. He pulled out a lighter, set it to the gasoline he had spread across the floor, and watched as the flames consumed everything his father had built. When the fire department arrived, all they found was ash. Luca drove home to the house he had bought in Westchester. Nothing fancy. Just a normal house in a normal neighborhood with a yard where Elena could play, and neighbors who did not know anything about his past. Scarlett was in the kitchen when he walked in. She looked up from the pasta she was making. "Did you do it?" "Yeah." "How do you feel?" Luca thought about it. For years, he had carried the weight of his father's empire, the guilt, the responsibility, the knowledge that everything his father had built was poison. But now it was gone, all of it, and Luca felt lighter than he had in his entire life. "Free," he said finally. Scarlett smiled and crossed the kitchen to kiss him. Outside, Elena played in the yard with a dog they had adopted last month. Her laughter floated through the open window, and Luca realized that this ordinary moment in an ordinary house with his wife and daughter, was worth more than everything his father had ever built, because his father had ruled through fear and power and violence. But Luca had learned something his father never understood. Real power was not about how many people feared you. It was about how many people loved you. And standing in that kitchen with Scarlett's arms around him and Elena's laughter in his ears, Luca knew he had finally found the only power that mattered. 5 years after that, Scarlett stood in a surgical theater at Metropolitan Crown Hospital, performing the same kind of operation that had brought Luca back into her life: cardiac surgery, life or death. The patient on her table was a 15-year-old girl from a family that could not afford the procedure. But the Elena Vale Foundation, the charity Luca had created and funded entirely from the liquidated assets of his father's empire, covered the cost. They had funded over 300 surgeries in the past 5 years, saved over 300 lives, turned blood money into something good. Scarlett tied off the final suture and stepped back. "She is stable," she said. The surgical team relaxed. Another life saved. Another family that would not have to bury their daughter. When Scarlett finally left the hospital 12 hours later, she found Luca waiting in the parking garage. He leaned against his car, hands in his pockets, looking exactly like he had the first time she had met him, except different. Older, but at peace. "How did it go?" he asked. "She is going to make it." Luca smiled. "Good." They drove home together. Elena was 17 now, preparing for college applications, talking about following in Scarlett's footsteps and becoming a surgeon. She had Luca's eyes, Scarlett's determination, and a future free from the darkness that had once threatened to consume them all. That night, after Elena had gone to bed, Scarlett and Luca sat on their back porch watching the stars. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if I had let you die that night?" Scarlett asked quietly. Luca was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Every day. And I am grateful you did not, because everything I have now, you, Elena, this life, it only exists because you chose to save me when you had every reason to let me go." Scarlett leaned against his shoulder. "I could not let you go. Even when I hated you, I could not." "Why not?" "Because some people are worth fighting for. Even when it is hard, even when it hurts, even when every logical part of your brain tells you to walk away." She paused. "You were worth fighting for, Luca. You still are." Luca kissed the top of her head, and sitting there under the stars with the woman he loved and the daughter he had almost never met sleeping safely inside, Luca Moretti finally understood what it meant to be home. Not a place, not a building, not an empire. Just two people who had survived hell together and chosen to build something beautiful from the ashes. That was home. That was everything. And after years of blood and violence and darkness, Luca had finally found his way back to the light. The end. The story of Luca Moretti and Scarlet Veil did not end with a fairy tale. There were still hard days. Still moments when the past came knocking. Still scars that never fully healed. But they faced it together, built a life together, raised their daughter together, and proved that even the most broken people could find redemption if they were willing to fight for it. Because love was not about being perfect. It was about being present, about showing up every day and choosing each other even when it was hard, about building something worth protecting. And in the end, that was the only empire that mattered. Not one built on fear and power and violence, but one built on love and sacrifice and second chances. The mafia boss who once ruled New York through terror had become a father, a husband, a man who measured his worth not by how many people feared him, but by how fiercely he protected the people he loved. And the surgeon who had spent 7 years believing she was better off alone had learned that sometimes the greatest risk was not opening your heart to someone dangerous. It was closing it off completely and spending the rest of your life wondering what could have been. They had survived the impossible, lost everything, found it again. And in doing so, they discovered something more powerful than any empire, each other. And that was worth more than all the power in the world.